Welcome to Cash Chats with me, Andy Webb from BeCleverWithYourCash.com. This is the podcast to help you make the most of your money. Episode 402 is just me, no Amelia for this one. And I'm going to be taking you through why you need more than one card following the big IT outage last week. I'll be talking about how you can watch the Olympics on TV, the cheapest way to do this. And that isn't going to be, as you expect, maybe just tune into the BBC. Plus, I'm going to be talking about water meters and show you how much I've saved over the years by having one of those and whether it's something you should be considering. All of that and, as ever, the deals of the week, including a new bank switching deal. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But let's get into it. This is episode 402 of Cash Chats. First of all, let's talk about the Olympics. I am very excited about this. It's starting this coming Friday. In fact, there are a few things starting a few days before it. And every 4 years, I get very, very, very excited about getting involved with that. Ever since 2012, really, when it was in London, I was in there, I was working on it for the BBC. I've been one of my top things to look forward to. Normally, if you remember back to 2012 and 2016 and all the years before that, you probably would have thought, right, I'll just watch it on the BBC. And with iPlayer coming along with so many different feeds, so many different streams, you think, right, I'm just going to go, I want to watch the gymnastics. I'll go and watch that on there. I want to watch the athletics. I'll do that. If things are clashing, it's fine. I can catch up with them later on, no problem at all. But things actually changed, well, not 4 years ago, 3 years ago, because obviously the Tokyo Olympics were slightly delayed. And what happened was the Olympics themselves, they sold the rights as a big package for many, many territories across the world to Eurosport and to Discovery. They're the ones who will be showing everything. Now, the BBC do still have some rights. They will still be showing some of the sports. If you're a little bit more casual about it, that's obviously going to be the cheapest way to do this, assuming you have obviously paid for your TV license, but you'll need a TV license to watch anything live, including on other Olympics on other channels as well. So you need your TV license for that. You'll be able to have two separate concurrent streams going on. You've got the BBC One, maybe BBC Two channel, and that's where the big events will be. Then they also have another option on the iPlayer where you can watch other things. But that's still only two things at the same time, which means some stuff might be shown later on, so you won't be watching it live. But some stuff might just be condensed into like a little bit of a package, like over here, this happened. So if that is not enough for you, it is not the BBC's fault. It's the fact, say, that the Olympics sold their rights to Discovery. You will need Eurosport, and you will need Eurosport. On the whole, you're going to get this via Discovery Plus. Now, Discovery Plus is the streaming service, and there are a number of different options for this. There is one which is completely free, and that's basically just giving you the the Discovery channels, which you can get on Freeview. So HGTV and the Food Channel and things like that. There's not many there. That's not going to work. There's also a next level after this, which is Discovery Plus Basic, which has all their lifestyle channels. Again, that's not going to work. To watch the Olympic Games and all the different streams of all the different sports all at the same time, you need either Discovery Plus Standard or Discovery Plus Premium. Now, it doesn't matter which one of those you get. And if you're not bothered about having TNT Sports, which is what you get with Premium, and that has obviously some Premier League games, some Champions League games coming from the coming season, other sports. If you're not worried about that, ignore it, because that is the most expensive option for most people, around 30 quid. Although you might find there are a few ways to get the price down or save on that generally you're tying yourself into a slightly longer contract. So that's probably best avoided. If you literally just want for the 2.5 weeks of the Olympic Games, then that Discovery Plus Standard is what you want to go for. And this is currently on a special offer. It's reduced from $6.99 a month to $3.99 a month. Sadly, there are no free trials or anything like that. You'll be paying $3.99. That price is monthly. So if you just want it for the 1 month, that's all you need to pay. Just remember to cancel it. If you don't want to cancel it, you want to keep Eurosport going for a bit longer, then that price will remain until the end of 2024. And then when it next renews in 2025, in January 2025, it goes up to $6.99. But you have that flexibility to cancel at any time. So that's how you watch the Olympics, the cheapest ways to watch the Olympics over the coming weeks. I hope you enjoy it as much as I'm going to. Okay, let's go back now to last Friday when that big worldwide IT outage caused all sorts of problems. And we're still going to be, I'm sure, over the coming weeks, getting to the bottom of exactly what the impact is going to be in some of those cases. Now, again, there are lots of ways this will have impacted our finances, but I'm not going to be talking about the travel stuff right now. I'm not going to be talking about any of the other bits and pieces. I want to specifically talk about one of the things that became apparent quite early on Friday was a number of retailers unable to take card payments. And from that, I want to kind of just explain to you about some of the reasons why you want to have more than one card available to you and some of the things you want to look at when you're considering having more than one card. So just remind you what will happen. You might not have necessarily been aware of it. You might not have encountered it. But on the Friday morning, I popped out to my local high street just to see how widespread this issue was. And it didn't seem too huge here in the UK. Most of the shops I went into were absolutely fine. They hadn't even realised there was this big problem with cards because people had been coming in all morning. Most people pay with a card anyway, tapping it away and walking off no issue. But there were a few places in my local high street and many more that you kind of shared with us over in the Facebook group and also sort of broader than that across the UK, where people were unable to pay with their cards in store and online as well. Now, the online stuff's slightly more complicated because some of that might be processing the actual ability to spend online was down. But in terms of the high street, Waitrose, they were, at least to start off, unable to take contactless, but it seemed other cards were working okay if you use chip and pin, although not every time. And sometimes there was inconsistency with the type of card they were finding. They were just chatting to the woman at the checkout, but she was saying sometimes these cards are working, sometimes they're not, sometimes it's not the first time. But it was all a bit of a mess. Morrison's also had issues with card transactions. I popped into Holland and Barrett and they said they were taking no cards at all, let alone just chip and pin. So this was, for some people, probably just a minor inconvenience, right? But at that time, we didn't know how bad this could have got, how long this could have lasted. And there would have been some people who actually, this could have been actually quite disastrous. Some urgent payments, something they urgently needed to buy and been unable to do it. So if this was to happen again, and let's hope this never does, but something like this was going to happen, and it could be limited to an individual brand, perhaps, or an individual retailer. But even so, the options of what you can do, which aren't about resorting to get cash out. Now, if long as the cash machines are working in these kind of situations, I think they mainly were on Friday, then that's going to be okay. You can go and get some cash out. But not everywhere has a cash machine now. We know the closure of lots of banks and the reduction in cash machines can be a bit of an issue. So what are the things you can maybe mitigate if this comes up to help you get across this? Now, assuming that cards are accepted in some form, then I would definitely suggest having more than one card on you at all times. And that potentially also means, because if contactless isn't working, that means carrying these cards with you in your wallet or in your purse rather than just having them on your Apple Pay or Google Pay. Having more than one card available to you is a really, really good option there. And then when you look at those different cards you should be getting, there are other factors that come into play. Yes, you guys watch this regularly. You know I often talk about having more than one current account, which you absolutely can do. Don't worry, you're not limited to just one. And the reasons for having additional current accounts, like getting rewards or high rates of savings or getting cash back. So if you're going down those routes, you might already have 2 or 3 different debit cards or credit cards that you can call upon. So you think, right, great, that's sorted. But there's a next level beyond this, which is definitely worth thinking about. First of all, it's about making sure they are from different banks. So if you have got a debit card and a credit card from the same bank, which often you may well do because of the features that come with each of those, or just like your bank, if they have a problem with their system rather than a wider sort of terminal system, then you might have the same problem. The credit card and the debit card won't work. So we're certainly trying to have those cards from different banks. I would also be looking to see if you have at least one Visa and at least one MasterCard. Potentially also American Express in that mix as well, because that means that if there's a problem with Visa, you can spend with MasterCard or Amex or vice versa, mix it all around. You've got that ability to go in and spend with those cards. Now, that could well happen. I certainly haven't had it necessarily much in the UK, but I did have it abroad once. It was in South America, and MasterCard wouldn't work in, I think it was a town in Bolivia, right? Wouldn't work at all. But fortunately, I had a Visa that I could use in that situation. So it's having that mixed around is going to be really useful for you. I'd also make sure there is a mix between debit cards and credit cards. Now, most of the time, it makes sense to spend from whichever one, from my point of view anyway, the one which gives you the best reward, which is often why at the moment I'm using my Hyperjar card, but previously I was using an Amex, before that was a Chase, before that an Amex. I mix it around depending which one is giving me the best possible rate at any time. And long as you can manage those, particularly when it comes to credit cards by clearing the balance in full every single month, that's a great thing to do. Obviously, if you are abroad, you want to make sure you've got a fee-free option in that kind of portfolio of cards that you've got as well. Doesn't even be your main card, but certainly one for when you are going overseas. It's a good option to have that. But when we come to these kind of scenarios, if this was to happen, and we're talking about having a problem where cards, particular cards can't be used, you're more likely still with more than one current account, even if you are got them for all the different features, to have the bulk of your money in one account. Ideally, you might have more money just in separate savings accounts, earning the best possible interest. And if that's the case and your main debit card has gone down, you can't use it, but you've got money in savings elsewhere, which you can access, you can transfer that to another debit card, no problem. But let's say your savings are in the same app or online banking as your main account, and that's gone down. You can't access that at all. Or potentially you don't have access to online banking while you're out and about, whatever it might be, for your savings account, or it's not an instant transfer across. Well, then you might have an issue where you can't actually, you've got this debit card and it's working, but you've got no money on there. Now, you might be able to go overdrawn, but that's going to be very expensive. For however long you're overdrawn, it's going to cost you money. So having a credit card for that kind of emergency spending is going to be really, really, really handy because you don't have to pay it right now. You will have a long time. You've normally got where you've got a statement date every single month. So unless you're right before the statement date, well, you're still going to have a couple of weeks after that to make that payment. And in fact, if it's automated via a direct debit from your main current account, and as long as direct debits haven't been affected by this, phantom, this mythical or hypothetical, I should say, outage on the app, then that's going to be covered there anyway. You're paying it in full, so that means it's not going to be a problem. You are much more protected that way. And there's also an additional benefit by having a credit card in your mix, even if you don't use it on a regular basis. It's because certain times you might actually want to use a credit card over a debit card. You've got that consumer protection, Section 75, it's called, something costs more than £100. Then you can use your credit card for spending on it, and it's protected. If something goes wrong, the credit card company will have to refund you legally in exactly the same way the retailer would. You can go to either one, no problem. So that's great. Or things like car hire. I talk about this particularly when we talk about spending overseas. A good reason to have a fee-free credit card overseas, but same for the UK as well. Something like a car rental, they will want to sort of put a hold on a chunk of your cash in case there's an accident and they need to claw some of that money back. You might also get it in hotels. There'll be other times this might happen. Basically, that security deposit. If you do it from your debit card, assuming it's working okay, you do it from your debit card, then they will take that from the balance. They will deduct that. Now, that could obviously greatly reduce how much money you've got for spending in the interim until you have returned the car, but it could also make you overdrawn. So that using a credit card, it just lowers your credit limit temporarily, and then that's released when you return it. So that's a much, much better thing to do. In fact, sometimes they might require you to have a credit card rather than use your debit card for things like car hire. So again, another reason, not necessarily related to the kind of technical issues that we had or could have, but another good reason to have this mix, more than one card on you at all times. Now, if you watched or listened to the Your Money This Week episode of the podcast a few weeks ago, you'll know that Amelia and I spoke around the changes coming along to our water bills next April. They're going to go up by, I think it was average, of 19 quid a year for 5 years. So go up by 19 quid. And then the following year, another 19 quid. Another, so they're quite high increases each year. And they're going to compound as well, because you'll be paying that first 19 quid for 5 years and so on. So our bills, they are going to be going up. And it depends where you live in the country. It could be more than that. It could be a lot more because different water companies have had different sort of caps set by Ofwat, which is the regulator. So I thought this is a good opportunity to talk about water meters, whether you should get one, and share with you kind of the savings that I made when I switched over. So first of all, what is a water meter? Now, some of you might already have this. And you're like, well, I've got one and it's expensive. It's costing me a lot of money. And most new builds have got this, and many people have already been converted over. They've got this, right? But if you currently have the old rate style water on your bills, that effectively is a set amount. You pay however much you use. It's just based on the size of your property, and that was set a long time ago, right? If you're on that, there is the potential that moving to a water meter might actually reduce how much you pay. And that's because if there are generally, the rule of thumb is fewer people in a house compared to the size of it. So let's say you live in a 3-bedroom house, right? But there's only 2 of you there. Then the chances are your rateable value, how your water rate is set, is going to be higher than the actual usage you would have. Or maybe you just don't use much water at all. Then obviously that also could be a lot lower down. So what you want to do is you want to go on to your local water company website, and they will generally have a calculator there. If not, they'll link to one, or you can just Google for this calculator. Or in fact, I've got an article on this where we link to one you can go to, and you're putting roughly how many showers you have, how many baths you have, how many times you use a dishwasher, all that kind of stuff in a sort of week or a month. And it will give you an indication of how much it thinks your bill would be, which you can then compare against what your water rate is. And as I say, general rule of thumb is if they are the same or fewer number of people in the house than bedrooms, a water meter is going to be less. So how did it work for me? Well, I moved where I live now in 2018. So we've been here for 6 years now. And the first bill we had from that summer was £590, which was quite a lot, right? The calculator at the time estimated that moving to a meter would cost 376 a year. So a saving of more than 200 quid. So it's like, well, we're going to give this a go, particularly because, and not all of them do this, but most water companies will let you do this for up to 2 years. And then if you change your mind, switch back. Now, if you go past that 2-year period, then sadly you are stuck with it. And if you move into into a house already with a meter, you are stuck with it. But I certainly think it's worth doing the calculator, giving it a couple of years and see exactly how that went. So in the first year, it estimated we would save. And as it happened, the bill that actually came through a year later, what our company were not able to monitor this on a regular basis. It's just an annual thing, which is a bit frustrating. Different companies do things a little bit differently. The actual charge was 390 quid. So a bit more than the estimate, but still a big saving for us. Now, in the years since then, our water use has varied massively. Sometimes it's a hell of a lot. And I think the biggest year we had was probably when during lockdown. We were at home more, so that was kind of an impact we had. But it's gone up and down a little bit over the years. But broadly speaking, right now, the latest bill that's come through, based on our usage last year, right? So it does kind of work in hindsight a little bit. But the latest one was for 425 quid. So that is still 165 quid less than the water rate cost, the standard bill cost of 6 years ago. And obviously that bill will have increased year on year on year on year as well. So I wouldn't be surprised. Let's say we are saving versus that thing around 200 quid a year. Maybe let's say less. Let's say it's been less than that. But still over 6 years, I think we've saved £1,000 by moving to a water meter. So absolutely was well worth doing. And if I'd done this in my previous house, similar savings, I was there for 8 years. This is a lot of money I would have been able to save. Now, again, reiterate, this is just my own individual experience here. That is not going to be the case for everyone. If you are currently just a couple in a house, but you're planning on having kids, well, it might be cheaper now. But once you've got that first kid, maybe a second kid, maybe more. Okay, you might have to move house if more kids you have. But assuming you could have 2 kids in a current house, well, that's suddenly going to mean the water bills are going to go up. The cost of a meter will go up. So you do want to have a little think about not just your current situation, but how it might change in the future. And just reiterating again, things can change with this. You've only got 2 years to kind of say, I want to sort of be happy with this. If the things do change after 2 years and you've switched over, you won't be able to switch back. And as a member as well, you may well be someone with a big garden and you water the garden a lot with lots of flowers. You might have a swimming pool. If you've got a swimming pool, it depends how that's been factored into the rates, but that's going to cost a lot of water as well. You might wash your car a lot. Do factor all those things in. So that calculator you use is just an estimate. Get more information on this and actually all the things we've spoken about so far in this episode over at becleverwithyourcash.com. Right, I'm going to end episode 402 of Cash Chats with the deals of the week, as I always do. Again, find all the information of these over on the website. First one to tell you about is a new switching deal from Co-op Bank. They've just ended one 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they've replaced it with this one, which does work differently. This one is worth £100 for the switch, so an improvement on the last one, and then potentially another 60 quid on top. Potentially it's £10 every month for 6 months. Now, I have written about this in more detail, and I've got a separate video on the YouTube channel. So if you do want all the ins and outs in it, please do check out that content. But for those of you listening at home or haven't seen that content already, headlines are, that sounds great, £100 for switching, another £10 a month for 6 months, which isn't bad, but the account this time is only their packaged account, the Everyday Extras version. Now, this comes with travel insurance, breakdown cover, mobile phone insurance, which might be useful if you need those things, but it also comes with a £15 fee every single month. And that switching deal, that's going to take you more than a month to get that first £100, pretty much. Do all the criteria, meet the criteria, which are detailed separately. You get that £100, let's say in month 2. So that's 2 times 2 months you paid that £15. Then you don't start earning that £10 a month, as long as you meet the criteria, until the month after you've had that money. So realistically, the fastest you're going to do this is in 7 months. More realistically, it could be 8, maybe even 9 months, depending on how long it takes you to get that initial cash. So that is £15 times 7, 8, or 9, which you're going to deduct off that total 160 quid you get. So really, you're probably going to not make too much from this. 25 quid, 40 quid maybe. Yes, you get that insurances included, which if you use them, that's a great way of saving on them. But it might be, in my view, better to wait until, there's no guarantee they'll do this, but wait until Co-op bring back a different switching deal, which isn't so complicated, which you can get on their free account, so you can get that money straightforward. And even if you want a packaged account or want those insurances, again, it might be better to shop around for those. I did cover those in more detail on the website and the podcast and the YouTube channel very recently, the top picks there. What else to share with you in terms of deals? This is an interesting one from Bird's Eye. So things like fish fingers and chips and happy smiley faces, whatever they're called. If you buy 4 in single transaction of their promotional packages, so look, this needs to be on the packaging, but 4 of them in a single go. Let's talk about a free board game. Well, then you can claim a free board game. You do have to pay postage, so that's going to be about $3.95. So it's not really free, but assuming you want the food that you're buying initially, your petit pois or whatever it might be, and spray that money, you could easily be getting, £4 for a board game, which although they say is worth 39 quid, I look around at some of those titles. So Connect 4, Monopoly, Cluedo, Bop It, Trivial Pursuit Family Edition. They're often available around sort of 16 to 20 quid, but still, it's a brand new full board game. It's not a bad saving if you're going to buy that food anyway. Obviously, summer holidays are about to kick off. And over on the site, we've got a very, 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 very long list of the places that are offering free and cheap kids' meals. Now, you often see these talked about free kids eat for free and stuff this summer. Often when they say that, the adult has to buy food as well. Doesn't mean it's not a good deal, but you also want to weigh it up against other ways you can save, maybe at other restaurants, maybe things with taste card, which might give you, 2 for 1 or 50% off, or other kind of vouchers you might find. But broadly speaking, if you've got kids and you're looking to save money, and there are some places where it is very, very cheap, if not free, for them to eat, do check out the list there. I won't go through them now because there are so many, but we've got one of the most comprehensive lists, if not the most comprehensive lists out there, which will help you with your cash. A few other things to share with you. Tesco and Sainsbury's have both brought back their challenges. So it's called Club Card Challenges at Tesco and Nectar Shop for points. Not everyone's going to get this, but check your apps. And basically, they require you to sort of spend buy certain products or spend a certain amount in certain areas to get additional points and discounts. If you shop at Tesco or Sainsbury's anyway for your groceries, check them out to see if you can save some money. And I think broadly that's it for the deals this week. Things do come and go. Morrison's for 25% off 6 bottles of wine or more. And I think Sainsbury's are adding that later this week. We'll update that on the site along with anything else that we spot. My name is Andy Webb. We'll be back on Thursday on YouTube with another Your Money This Week video and Friday morning on all podcasting apps for the same one. So please do join us then. Until then, cheers.